nanohub.org.
Online simulation, and more for nanotechnology.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Chris Svec. I work for iRobot. I'm a software engineering manager of an embedded software team here at iRobot. First things first, I do not speak for iRobot. I don't. I have nothing to do representing the company. I happen to work there. I happen to like working there. I will try to give you some useful tidbits that I've learned from working there and elsewhere, but this is not an iRobot sanctioned presentation at all. The title of this talk, this whatever, is Will This Be on the Test and Other Bad Questions? Will this be on the test is a common question in school. I ask it all the time in college and before. It's a great question to ask in school, but it's a lousy question to ask kind of outside of school for real life. Today, hopefully I can share some things that I wish that I knew when I was finishing college or when I was in undergrad or grad school. Hopefully some piece of it will be helpful, something will resonate with you. I definitely want to make this interactive, so I'm not sure if people can interrupt during this. I don't see a chat view or anything. At the very least, I plan to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. And just in case I miss something or I say something confusing or you have any other random questions about work or career or anything else that I might be able to answer, hopefully we can get to that.
And I can chip in, Chris, when I see chats going by. So I see them. It's harder for you as a presenter to see them.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, feel free to interrupt at any time. So it's kind of roughly three parts to my talk. Just a little intro about me, a little bit about kind of where we're headed. Then I want to talk about psychology and sociology as kind of in the career context, and then we'll talk a little bit about technology. So a bit about me. I went to Purdue for both undergrad and a master's degree. I love Purdue. My whole family is basically from Purdue. My wife's from there. My three sisters-in-laws are all from there. My brother went there. My mother-in-law recently retired from there. So I'm definitely a proud Purdue alumni, and I'm very, very honored to get to talk to all of you. I really enjoyed my time at Purdue, and so I'm super excited to come and hopefully give back something useful to all of you there. I started right after grad school. I went to AMD. I designed chips for about 8 years or so. I worked on various x86 chips. Computer architecture was my field. I studied with Vijay Kumar there at Purdue, and loved designing chips for 3, 4, 5 years. Then I kind of burned out of chip design, which surprised me. I thought I would do that for my entire career. I had when I was 20, 22 and went into grad school, thought I was going to do chip design for the rest of my life. And I enjoyed it for a few years, and then I stopped enjoying it quite as much, and then I was kind of ready to be done with it. That took me a while to realize and to be okay with, but I transitioned over to do embedded software after 8 or so years of doing chip design. And I've been doing that ever since, and I love that. So I went to Silicon Labs to start doing embedded software design, and then I went to another company called Ember. Both these companies are chip companies that basically make various semiconductor analog and digital chips, microcontrollers and such, and I wrote firmware for the chips that they made. Silicon Labs ended up buying Ember, so I kind of worked for Silicon Labs a couple of different times as they bought the company that I changed to. And then about 7 years ago, I kind of switched again, and I went to iRobot, where I've been working ever since. Currently I manage an embedded software team at iRobot. We have tons of software at iRobot, everything from deeply embedded stuff to machine learning to computer vision to iOS apps, Android apps, cloud software. We've got it all. And so it's been a great time at iRobot, getting to see tons of different software and making consumer products. I've got to give a little bit of a commercial for iRobot. If you're not familiar with us, we make the Roomba. That's kind of our bread and butter product. We have various mopping robots and vacuuming robots. And we're a consumer products company. We used to do defense robots. We used to do some remote presence robots, but now we are solely consumer robots. If you Google around a little bit, there's the fun thing about working at a company that makes consumer products is that, first of all, I can buy these for my parents or for my friends. I can see the stuff that I make at Best Buy or Amazon or Costco shelves, and people do fun things on the internet with there's this woman in Texas who her cat loved to ride the Roomba, and her animals were, I guess, okay with her dressing them up. And so there's a bunch of fun memes online about this stuff. If you Google the word Doomba, it's Doomba, People have done a lot of unadvisable things with the Roomba as well. I wouldn't do this at home, but it's kind of funny stuff. This couple, they had kind of a knife fight with their Roombas, so they put some knives on them, they put some balloons on them, they let them go. They basically saw who popped whose balloon. This is definitely not an iRobot talk, because don't try this at home, but this is one of the fun things about working at a consumer focused company. Let's see. All right, let's dive into kind of the more substantial part of what I have to say here. So this graph, this is an intentionally vague graph, but I'll try to paint a word picture here. So go with me. So let's just say the x-axis along the horizontal axis, that's time. All right. So you're born at the left-hand side, and then as you go to the right-hand side, you're getting older and older. The y-axis is something like learning or knowledge or wisdom or job satisfaction or job, career achievement or life achievement. I'm being intentionally vague here, but for now, let's just call it learning or knowledge. So that the vertical dashed line down at about, I don't know, a quarter of the way into it, that line in time is kind of the end of college. And so you'll see the blue line kind of goes up and to the right on a pretty steady slope, right up until the time you leave college. And so what I'm trying to show there is that up until the end of college, sort of everything you learn, everything you do for projects, everything you do for homework, most of the things you've done has been done before. And many of your homeworks, there is a right solution, and there is probably only one right solution. Most projects that you're working on, they've been done before. You take the class, you're expected to learn most of the material. You take the next class, you're going to learn that material. And once you get into master's thesis and then research and PhD thesis and research, you're starting to push the frontiers of new knowledge, of new, undiscovered things that don't have sort of right or wrong answers. But it still is largely you're moving up and to the right, you're making progress at regular intervals, and you can expect to be learning, growing, kind of getting some career job, whatever satisfaction, periodically along the way. That vertical line, again, the orange dotted vertical line, that is kind of when you leave academia, when you leave college and you end up in the real world. And you can see after that point, sort of all bets are off. The line is still going mostly up and to the right, but I've drawn that intentionally stupid looking line to sort of show that, look, when you leave college, whether you go into academia or whether you go into industry, you're going to have ups and downs. You are not going to keep making I'm a freshman, I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I'm in grad school kind of progression. Things are going to go up and down. You're going to take a great job and you're going to learn a ton for about 6 months, and then you're going to burn out. And then you're going to feel like you're learning less. You're going to feel like maybe you're wasting your time, and then you're going to look for a new job, and you're going to be stuck in a job maybe you don't like for a while. Then you'll find a new job, and you'll be fired up again, and you'll find some new area of study or new area of focus, and you'll learn a ton in a short amount of time. Maybe you'll actually have a sustained period of learning, a sustained period of growth. And then that'll last for 1, 2, 3, 7 years. And then you'll go back down again because you'll kind of stagnate. Maybe you get laid off. Maybe you quit and decide to go, not work, take a sabbatical for a few years, or go back to grad school later or something. Who knows? The point of this is that when we kind of end college, it's a big shift to think of your previous life was mostly linear. You could pretty much plan what you'd be doing for the next year or 2 or 3 or 4. And once you leave college, once you leave college, that linear path is not to be expected. You need to get used to the fact that you have to kind of make your own schedule. You have to make your own goals, and things aren't going to be kind of working out exactly as you planned. If you accept that, if you kind of accept the randomness, accept that things are going to go up and down, if you embrace it and kind of, at the very least accept it, and at best you actually embrace it and you kind of look forward to it, then that kind of sets your expectations more correctly. If you wonder why you're not progressing like you did during your pre-college life or in college life, this is a reason why. Now, how do you respond to it? That's a much larger topic, but at the very least, I want to set some expectations for sort of post-college life. I want to talk a little bit about job descriptions and kind of some career thoughts here. This is a little bit of a grab bag of topics, but these are things that I wish I'd known when I was in school. So job descriptions, whether you're going academic, whether you're going internship, co-op, whether you're going full-time industry job, there's going to be a job description. And I want to talk a little bit about how they're created, what they're used for, how hiring managers use them, and hopefully give you a little bit of insight into how you can be successful with them. So what happens is, so that this job description I have in front of me, this is the job that I was hired for at iRobot 7 years ago. I cut and paste the text. This is actually it. And the way job descriptions are created is if a company has a job opening, there's a hiring manager. So whoever the manager is who's going to manage that position needs to put a job ad out there, or a job requisition, or a job rec, they're called. They need to write a job rec that says, what do we want this person to do? If the job is kind of like a similar job they've hired for in the past, they probably just copy and paste the Word document. They ask their recruiter or their HR person to jam that into whatever website the company is using for their recruiting, and up it goes. The hiring manager, their full-time job is to ship a product, is to manage a team of people to ship some product, or to do some research, or to basically do a task. The hiring manager's full-time job is not hiring. And so sadly, the hiring activities are sometimes sort of not the top priority of a hiring manager. So when you see job descriptions, remember that some of this might have been recycled from previous jobs or from previous people who work there. And they might just sort of say, okay, well, Susie just left and she had a BS in computer science. So we'll put that as the first requirement. We want someone who can kind of do what she did. And you know what? She had a master's degree and she was really good. So let's say advanced degree. And how long did she work with real-time systems? Oh, 8 years? Okay, we'll put 8 years on there. And then, she did a lot of motor control stuff. So we'll put experience developing algorithms for motor controls. We consider her an expert in C++. We'll put that on there. And so on. You can see how a job description might get made based on either a job candidate or a person who currently works there, used to work there, or the text you had from the last time you hired for this. Now, does the hiring manager in this case actually need every single bullet on a job description to be checked in order for them to even look at your resume? And the answer is no. So as maybe if you can look at the poll for me here, or a poll, or just if you all can text answers. So there's 11 requirements on there. I wanted people to guess how many of these requirements I actually satisfied when I got hired for this job. So your answer needs between 0 and 11. So if you could just shout some out in chat, people. And I see 5. 5's coming up a couple times. 8. I'm hoping someone guesses 0. Someone's got to be a pessimist and guess 0. 3. That's good. Good. 4. All right. 4, 7. Okay, cool. These are some good numbers. These are some good guesses, and let's walk through them and let's see what where I actually landed. All right. So I do in fact have a BS, and in fact I actually have a master's degree. So actually, I give myself a definite check mark for this one. I did not have 8 years of experience at this time with real-time systems. I think I had 7 or something at this time. So I'm going to give it to myself because I was close enough. I wasn't like just 1 year experience. So I'll give myself that one. I had never done anything with a motor in my life, so I definitely don't get any points for this. I would not call myself an expert in C or C++. I don't think I'm going to ever call myself an expert in C or C++. I'm okay at it. I'm good at it, but I'm not an expert. I'm going to give myself credit here because going into this job, I knew that expert doesn't really mean anything. There's no way to verify if someone is or isn't an expert. So I felt confident with C++. We'll run with it. I'd never done any Lisp. It turns out that some of our robots at iRobot are programmed in Lisp, and that was actually a draw for me. I got to learn Lisp when I started here, but I'd never touched it before. Good understanding of design patterns, data structures, and advanced software techniques. I wasn't too fluent in data pattern or design patterns. I don't actually know what an advanced software technique is. I have no idea what that means. I still don't have any idea what that means. I'll give myself credit for that. Why not? I knew what data structures were. I knew what a linked list was, so sure, we'll give you credit for that. Able to solve typical software issue with speed and elegance. That means nothing to me. Capable of solving complex tasks in creative and effective ways. Again, this is kind of filler. Like the opposite of this is only capable of solving simple tasks in boring ways, which I don't think anyone would put on a job application. So I don't know. This is kind of throwaway text for me. Able to provide time and complexity estimates for input into schedules. Again, the opposite of this is unwilling to provide time and complexity estimates, I guess. So that's kind of a throwaway. Proactive and self-directing. Don't walk into a job interview and say that you are not proactive, I guess. Track record of performing at a high level. Again, there's no way to validate that. So, I give myself 4 here. All right. I give myself 4 out of 11. And the way I look at this, 5 of these are kind of throwaway lines completely. The motor control algorithm one, that's a pretty hardcore requirement. I didn't meet that one fair and square. Knowledge of Lisp, I didn't meet that one fair and square. So 4 of 11 I met and I got the job. So who cares about my job, right? When you are looking at job descriptions, understand that the hiring manager wants someone to do some work for them. They're going to write down a bunch of stuff on there. And it's been my experience with every job I've had and every person I've hired for my jobs, where I've managed teams or been part of hiring teams, that job descriptions are a suggestion. We want someone who can do kind of this sort of stuff, and it doesn't need to look exactly like whatever the job description says. So don't feel like you have to really hold to it. Now, there's a few exceptions to this. I call them hard requirements. So some jobs will say you need a PhD in machine learning and you need advanced research. Your research area needs to be XYZ because we're doing computer vision machine learning. In that case, you probably need to have the expertise that the job is specifically calling out. Domain expertise is kind of a similar thing. If we need someone who is a worldwide expert in, brushed motor control design or something, they probably want that. So if you're a new college grad who's never touched a motor and the job says you need to be a motor expert, maybe don't apply for that job. Travel is something where some jobs will say you've got to travel, 50% of the time or 75% of the time for the job. Know that that's usually probably a requirement. So if you don't want to travel, don't apply for a job that says you got to travel a lot. Foreign language, many companies deal with teams all over the world, and so they need someone who's fluent in some set of languages. That's usually a pretty hard requirement. Years of experience is the tough one. If you remember from the previous slide, I think the role said that the job that I had said 8 years of doing embedded systems design. Usually I think of years in buckets. There's kind of new college grad to early career, which means you work for between 0 and 3 years. Then there's kind of this 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 year bucket where you work for a while and you've got some experience. Then there's kind of a 7 to 10 or 7 to 15 year bucket where you're a pretty senior person. And then there's the 15-year plus, you've definitely been around the block. And so if a job says, we want someone who had 2 years experience and you've had between 0 and 5 years experience, don't be shy about applying. If a job says we want a 15-year, super professional person who's done, 15 years of work in an area and you have 0 years of work because you're coming out of college, maybe that's not the best fit. If you're coming out of college and it says 7 years, but you've 7 years experience and you won't have 0 professional years experience, but you've done a bunch of work in that area or you're really interested in the area, I recommend applying for it. What's the worst case if you apply for a job? The worst case is they ignore you, right? So yeah, you got to spend some time doing a job application, sending your resume in, some emotional labor to write a cover letter, some time to actually go through whatever terrible web portal the company has to actually submit your resume online. It's not fun to not hear anything back, but if that's the worst case that happens, then go for it. At iRobot, our recruiters look at every resume that comes in. And at many companies, some human being looks at every single resume that comes in. So, maybe you'll get a hit, maybe you'll get lucky. There's a lot of luck. Hiring is a very imperfect process, and if you don't put yourself in for a job, there's definitely no way you're getting a job. So I recommend, if the only downside is your time and a little bit of disappointment, and you're just going to be told no is the worst case, then go for it. Let's talk a little bit about what a full-time job would look like. If you've had internships, if you've worked before, then you probably know kind of what it's like. But I recommend everyone watches a documentary movie. It's called Office Space. It's actually not a documentary. It's kind of a crude comedy written by Mike Judge, who's the guy who created Beavis and Butthead and Silicon Valley, among other things. But Office Space is a fantastic look at tech companies in like the late 90s. And it's still relatively relevant. If you watch Office Space and ever find yourself in a job where you feel like you're in Office Space, the movie, that's a good sign you need to find a new job and that it's not a great company. So it's kind of a dumb movie. It's kind of a funny movie. It's a bit crude, but I recommend it as a sort of potential warning sign if you ever see anything like that in a place where you work. So jokey movies aside, you go to a job, you start a new job, whether you're doing an internship or a full-time, and whether you're, full-time new grad out of college, or whether you've been working for 15 years and you start a new job. The similar thing is that you're going to feel dumb. You're going to feel ignorant whenever you start a new job. And again, that doesn't matter if you've been working for 20 years and you start a new job, you don't know how that company works. You don't know how their code base works. You don't know how their hardware works. You don't know what their HR policies is. You probably don't even know where the bathrooms are on the floor. You may get lost on your way to your cubicle. Totally normal. Totally, completely normal. Every job I've ever had, I show up day one. I've had 4 or 5 jobs, I guess. Day one, I don't know what's going on. I don't know which way is up. And over your career, you will get better at sort of learning faster and acclimating to a new job, but you're going to have no clue what's going on. I still feel regularly clueless, even at my current job, because there's plenty of new software, there's plenty of new parts of systems that I've just never seen before, and I need to learn new stuff all the time. This kind of plays into a thing that I wonder if any of you heard of this through any of your classes. This thing called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is sort of this cute little dog is telling us exactly what imposter syndrome is. It's a feeling that you have no idea what you're doing. And imposter syndrome is sort of the feeling that you are an imposter, that you have a job, that you have, some responsibilities. Someone's hired you to do a thing, or you're a PhD student and you're in someone's lab trying to do some research, and you are pretty sure that you don't know what's going on, and you're pretty sure that everyone around you knows that you don't know what's going on. One way to combat this is to admit your ignorance and get really comfortable admitting your ignorance. Now, admitting ignorance is literally a superpower. Admitting ignorance and asking questions when you don't understand something is as close to a sort of achievable human superpower as I can think of. We think that, oh, if I'm new at a company, if I ask a dumb question, I'm going to burst into flames and everyone's going to laugh at me. And that is absolutely not true. I understand that it is risky. It can feel risky to ask a question, to expose your ignorance. You assume that, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to know everything. They hired me after all. How can I expose my ignorance? And it takes emotional labor. It takes trust. It takes courage to admit your ignorance in front of peers, in front of your boss, in front of potential bosses. But if you ask the question, you'll usually find, if you ask a question, you'll usually find that, first of all, probably a third of the people in the room with you have the same question and were unwilling to ask that question. And you'll also find that you didn't burst into flames and people didn't laugh at you and it was probably just fine. And then you learned something new. The only way you're going to get better at a job or more comfortable in a research topic or learn new subjects is to be ignorant, admit that ignorance, sort of embrace that ignorance, and then move past it by learning something new. And you got to ask questions to get there. Now, if you find yourself in a company or in a group where your colleagues or your boss do laugh at you for asking what they think is a dumb question, or if people do kind of give you the, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't know how that worked, or I can't believe you've never sorted a linked list, or whatever it might be, if you get that kind of a rude reaction, unprofessional, immature reaction from a boss or from colleagues, then I say it's time to find a new team or a new company. That is not, I mean, I'm coming from a position of vast privilege in the world to be able to say that. So I'm not trying to trivialize, you're in a job where you don't feel valued or you feel like, your questions are diminished. It's not easy to just snap your fingers and find a new job. But I promise you, there are companies and groups and teams where everyone is allowed to be ignorant and sort of bring each other up as we all admit our ignorance. Hey, I need some help. Does anyone know how this works? Someone will know how it works and they'll help you out. The quicker you can get yourself to a company, group, team that sort of realizes we're all on this together, and the quicker we all learn, and the quicker we all admit what we don't know and then teach each other stuff, the better off you're going to be. And frankly, the happier you're going to be. Again, I don't mean to trivialize that. You can't just change jobs without a moment's notice. There's plenty of reasons why you can't. So if you're stuck in that situation, I feel for you. I hope that you can sort of make peace with that, but also hopefully find a better place for yourself. So sort of admitting ignorance, embracing it is one way to deal with imposter syndrome. The other way is to sort of realize that imposter syndrome is built on a lie. The lie looks like this. So, this circle, Venn diagram is coming your way here. This circle is representative of everything that I know. I know some stuff. If I have imposter syndrome, I then think that everyone else knows everything that I know, plus a whole bunch more. Plus, everyone else knows that I know less than them. All right? The truth is that, I know some stuff. You know some stuff. We've got some overlap in the middle. There's the Venn diagram, right? We got some overlap in the middle, but I know a bunch of stuff you don't know, whether I'm new college grad or whether I've been working for 40 years. And we both have something to bring to the table. If you assume the first slide, that's imposter syndrome telling you, nope, you don't know it. Other people know that you don't know it. That you should be ashamed. You're an imposter. This slide here is the truth. We've all, the knowledge, there's way too much knowledge out there for anyone to know everything. And we all know that everyone knows something and everyone, doesn't know something. And so hopefully the company hires so that there's a ton of overlap and there's a ton of non-overlap so that we get unique new things done where, people are bringing different things to the table. That's enough about imposter syndrome. I have a question for everybody. So the first question I want to ask, three questions. So first, just say yes or no, or in the chat, please. Are you, first question, good at math? Who thinks they're good at math? Yes or no? Good at math, or are you bad at math? Yes. These answers aren't graded, so feel free to say yes or no. Everyone gets 100%. I'm seeing a bunch of yeses coming. Okay, cool. We'll skip the smart one and we'll go to the last question here. Are you a good engineer? I'm using the word engineer because I'm a software engineer, a hardware engineer. Are you a good engineer? Is anyone brave enough to say, I don't think I'm, oh, there's an that's good. I like it. I like it. No, not a good engineer. Okay, that's brave. That's guts. I guess. Okay, good. Non-committal. Maybe. Okay, let me ask another question. I have no idea. That is a wise answer right there. That is expressing your ignorance. Love it. Kennedy, depends on the day. Also a good answer. Also a very good human answer. Let me ask you this. Are these even valid questions? Like, is there a, I don't know, a blood type or something that says you are good at math? Is there a, you are smart, you are dumb, that is it, case closed. Is a good engineer something that you can be? And no, is there a way to define it? The problem is, as engineers, and I know I fall into this camp, like there is black or white. One reason I like computer architecture and embedded stuff is that it's all zeros and ones, right? It's true or it's false. And as it turns out, like if I reduce the world into thinking, okay, I'm either smart or I'm dumb, I'm good at math or I'm bad at math, I'm a good engineer or I'm a bad engineer, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. I'm going to probably be pretty sad. I'm either going to be arrogant in thinking I'm good at math and you are not, or I'm going to be sad thinking, man, I suck. I'm a bad engineer and all these people are better than me and blah, blah, blah. So neither of those paths is very good. So I would challenge you to not ask these questions. And instead, so a comment just came up. I only saw the first part of it. These aren't good questions. What was the second part of that comment? Could someone read that to me? Gerhard, did you see that one flip by?
I think it says they aren't good questions, but they're still often asked or brought up.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for reading that. I had hoped that that's what the second part of the sentence said. Thank you so much. So they are often brought up. I want to challenge us. I want to challenge it. Just because someone asks the question doesn't mean it's a valid question. And, grades in school is a great example of grades in school teach us that did you get an A or did you get a B or C or an F? That means you must be bad, right? No, it ain't. Once you get out of school, the shades of gray come into play more. My colleague and friend Veronica Lane has a great saying. She says, belonging is a spectrum, it's not binary. And so what she means there is you're not good at math or bad at math. You know some math and you can learn some more math and then you'll know more math. You've got some engineering skill, you can do some engineering work, and if you work at it for longer, you'll learn more engineering and you'll become a better engineer. And you'll never be a good engineer or a bad engineer if you don't let yourself be defined that way. This might be a little too touchy-feely for engineers. I know that probably when I was in college, if I heard some weirdo talking this kind of talk in front of me, I am not sure I would have listened to them. But 40-something-year-old me sure wishes I had understood this 20 years earlier in my career, and I wouldn't have been so sort of black or white in all my thinking. So I hope this is at least useful to you. If not, at least there's some pretty colors in the screen. The next thing I want to talk about is mental health, and it kind of underlies a lot of this. And mental health is key to society, to you being a healthy individual. It is also a very fraught topic. It's a taboo topic amongst many people in society. So I want to be respectful as I discuss this, and I want to I want to, we can't have a real conversation here, but I hope this is at least pushes your thinking in a forward a little bit. So do you ever feel anxious in class or about grades or about research or about jobs? Do you ever feel depressed over, the state of the world, whether you're on campus or off campus? And when are you going to get a vaccine? When is this thing going to get figured out with COVID? Forget about COVID, depressed about jobs or your job prospects. Do you feel overwhelmed by classes? Do you feel like you can't get everything done? Do you lay awake at night when you should be sleeping because you have that exam in the morning? Is your brain going a billion miles an hour thinking about maybe how you're going to fail, how you probably already failed, how that project isn't going to get done very well, how your research advisor probably hates you? Do you ever stew about this stuff? Are you going to get married someday? Are you going to have kids? Are your parents proud of you? All this stuff that has gone through my head many times during college and post college. So do you have any thoughts like these? I'm willing to bet many or most of you do have something like this. Do you think that you're the only one who has these problems? Do you look around and think, yeah, everybody else in this room has most of this figured out, and I'm the only one who's really struggling with this? I'm not going to ask people to kind of discuss it here or to answer here because I don't want to out people in a particularly vulnerable way. But okay, so that's brave there. Thank you. Yes, so some people are feeling these things. My bet, I would bet good money that most of us feel some of this. We're getting all the time 24/7, 365. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Now, some people don't feel this, and man, my hat's off to them. Great for them. But I felt this all the time in grad school. I felt this all the time in undergrad, and I still feel it frequently today. I mean, let's take a step back. We're in the middle of an unprecedented pandemic when things are weird, right? I am presenting to you, right, not on campus. Some of you are at home, some of you are not on campus. I'm sure some of you had internships that either got canceled or you've been doing internships remote. It is hard to go from state to state or country to country. I'm sure some of you have been stuck in other countries as the world figures out what to do with this. This is a weird time, and I think one good outcome of sort of all of us being stuck and of COVID is that it seems like, at least in the US, that discussing mental health has become less of a taboo, and that things like self-care are becoming more easily open. It's easier to talk about them more openly. Talking about things like, hey, how are your anxiety levels? That comes up at work nowadays. Like I can ask my colleagues and my peers these sorts of questions, and it's kind of like, yeah, we all recognize that we all have some anxieties. Maybe we get used to, or we were hiding the anxieties. We all have some kind of neuroses that we're dealing with. We all have things that we're uncomfortable and unsure about. And talking about this and talking about mental health as a very important part of your daily life, I think is important. It's huge. It's becoming easier to do, less of a taboo. I hope that Purdue has mental health resources. I know when I was there was counseling, there was therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists that you could see. It is often very helpful to go talk to a professional. I did it in college, and it was immensely helpful. It was mindset changing, in that, first of all, talking through problems with someone who's a professional at listening and then asking questions back and helping you self-reflect and helping you introspect and coming up with ways for dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression and dealing with overwhelmed feelings and all these very common things. Seeking out professional help is hugely beneficial. It's becoming less of a taboo, which is fantastic. And I highly recommend it to all of you here. Look at what kind of resources Purdue offers. If you're unwilling to go talk to a stranger, which is effectively would be at first, then I encourage you to talk with your friends. I mean, we've had some very brave people here who are willing to admit, hey, I don't got it all together. And guess what? I'm guessing most of us feel like we don't have it all together, and it can be good to know we're in a similar boat. And we can lift each other up a little bit, at least, just by saying, hey, how you doing? And sharing a little bit of the reality of how you're doing in this time. You're going to have great days and you're going to have bad days. And those are both okay. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to have good days and bad days, and it's okay to share that. I am an absolute amateur at this. I am not a mental health professional. So I hope that I have treated this with some respect, and I hope that this was at least a little bit helpful. In the comments from last semester, when I gave a similar talk to this one, I read every single comment that you all wrote about the speakers, and it was very helpful to me to hopefully make it more informative this time. If something I said here was resonated with you, I'd love to hear that. If something did not resonate and kind of struck you wrong, I would also love to hear about that, so I can learn, and so that I can not make make I don't know, inconsiderate statements in the future. So I definitely, I can't see any of you. I can't even gauge your responses, right? So it's very tough from my side, but I want to be as respectful and as helpful as I can in the future as well. So if you give me honest feedback, I would sincerely appreciate it. All right. I talked a lot about career stuff. I've talked about mental health. I've talked about, kind of some of the day-to-day sort of what goes on in my brain, at least as I'm hiring, as I'm working, as I'm dealing with imposter syndrome, all these things. So let's get into a little bit about technology at the very end here, and then hopefully we'll have time for questions. So this is a slide that iRobot puts up. So Roomba, that's our bread and butter product. Here you can see very fast. This is not real time, all right? The Roomba does not go this fast, but it's building a map of your house and it cleans your house. And it's, this sentence at the bottom, Roombas are the masters at understanding the space of the home to deliver market-leading performance in clean homes around the world. That's a kind of marketing-y statement, but the reason I include it in here is not because I like our marketing. I think our marketing is fine. I'm not trying to make a commercial for Roomba, but what I'm trying to do is say our robots do a pretty good job at homes around the world, meaning not just one home, not just a couple homes, not just your research lab, but we have mapping technology, navigation technology, computer vision, AI, embedded, cloud, mobile, and for the most part, we work pretty well kind of all over the world in all sorts of different houses. Now, my slide is not moving forward. There we go. We make a consumer product. And again, I'm not trying to make this a commercial for iRobot, but a consumer product company means that you have technology that goes into something that has to be affordable for someone at Bed Bath & Beyond or for someone in middle class socioeconomic status. So we've got things like vSLAM, which is it's a robotics algorithm for building maps. And we have to consider what is the technology needed for that. And when we consider that technology, we have to think how much does it cost to manufacture? We have to think how do we manufacture it? Where do we manufacture it? We have to think of how reliable it's going to be. And that's not just reliable in your home, but is it reliable as it's manufactured somewhere, put into a box, put into a container ship, shipped across the ocean. That boat may go near the equator where the temperatures are really hot, or that boat may go closer to the North Atlantic Ocean where it's actually pretty cold. That boat may then undock and sit somewhere in a cold or hot place, and the robots need to deal with that. Once it gets unboxed, what is the user experience like? When the user buys it from Amazon, is it a different experience than when they buy it from a big box store like a Bed Bath & Beyond or Costco? We need to think about what are the computational resources that we put in the robot, which means, what chips do we put in the robot that do some algorithms on the robot itself? And since we can connect stuff to the cloud nowadays via Wi-Fi, what computational resources do we put in the cloud? And how does the robot talk to the cloud? And what if consumers don't want to connect their robot to the cloud via Wi-Fi? What kind of an experience do we give them if they don't want to connect the product at all versus they want to connect to the cloud? Additionally, there's privacy issues. Additionally, there's lifetime issues. How long are these supposed to last? My point here is just to illustrate, here's a laundry list of a very few set of questions and trade-offs and optimizations that we have to make at a consumer technology company. Any other company is going to have as long or longer list of different things you have to design for, you have to constrain for, you have to decide how much to spend along the way. And this is just kind of giving you some taste of the things you think about. It's not just writing a faster linked list algorithm. It's all the stuff that goes along with it. And quite frankly, that's the fun part of the job. We end up, we want to make a robot that cleans your home. That's kind of a simple problem statement. I want it to vacuum my house. And it turns out that can devolve into hundreds and thousands of questions about sort of the details of each piece of it. That is the fun part. And that is the level of complexity that you can expect to see when you get into really any type of job. Most products are going to have some sort of complexity like this. So that, I think, that's the last slide. And now I would love to open up to any questions. Unmute yourself. Just for clarification, do you endorse Roomba knife fights? No. For clarification, thank you. This is I do not endorse Roomba knife fights or arming Roombas or robots at all. I don't. I'm guessing iRobot doesn't either, but no, do not arm your Roombas. However, I can tell you, if the robots ever take over, all you got to do is go up a flight of stairs and you're safe. So that's, if the robots take over, just go to a different floor of your house and you're fine. Any questions at all? Questions on how to get a job? Questions on should I go to grad school? Should I quit grad school? How much money do you make? How do I negotiate salaries?
Those
How
are
much,
all good questions.
how much do I pay the robots?
So you mentioned applying to a job for which you did not have all the qualifications. When you're sitting, say you do get to the interview process and you are sitting in that interview and they say, oh, I noticed that you don't check this box off. How would you suggest approaching that kind of a question if it came up?
Let's see. I'm trying to think if that's actually ever happened to me. That's not your question, but I'm trying to think if it ever has happened. I don't know if it has happened. So usually the way interviews work is you put your resume in, and if someone wants to talk to you, either a recruiter or the hiring manager will typically give you a phone call, and they'll typically talk through your resume, and that they'll usually say, okay, this job we are writing C++, we're making motor drivers for robots, and we're doing X, Y, Z, and then tell me about yourself, tell me about your resume, and you'll get to kind of pitch yourself. If someone ever asks, hey, we really, we like people to have experience with motor controllers and you don't, then there's your chance to say, yeah, I don't, but I've read up about it, or here's how I would go about learning about it, or can you suggest resources to learn, the best about it. The single biggest indicator of success for me when I'm hiring a new hire is someone who is willing to learn, to express their ignorance, to admit their ignorance, and to dive in and learn stuff. And so if you show that, yeah, I don't know something, don't be ashamed of it. Don't lie about it, certainly. Don't kind of hem and haw around it, but say, yep, I don't know. I've never touched a motor control in my life. Here's a bit of Wikipedia research I did. Do you have any ways that you could suggest me to ramp up quickly?
Okay, then follow up. Do you think it would be necessary to mention it in your cover letter or just save it in case someone asks in the interview? Or do you think it's kind of a lie of omission not to mention that you're not meeting that qualification?
Are you from the Midwest? Can I ask you that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Let me tell you a story. So my wife is from Lafayette, Indiana. She is a townie. She's a townie from Lafayette, Indiana. And I live in North Carolina now. We don't live in Indiana anymore. But when I started applying for jobs, we got married right as we both finished grad school. And I started applying for jobs, and she saw me applying for jobs that I was not fully qualified for. Like, there was 11 things on the job requirements list. And my wife was like, "But you're lying by applying to a job that you're not fully qualified for." And I said, well, my resume doesn't say I have all 11 of those qualifications. My resume was 100% accurate. I was not lying on it. The hiring manager then gets to look at they get to look at my resume and they get to decide, am I worth a phone call? Right? I'm not misrepresenting myself. It is not morally wrong to apply for a job where you don't tick all the boxes. And my wife, who's a good Midwestern girl, I'll use that stereotype, she was brought up to believe basically, if a job requirement list has 11 things, it is morally wrong to apply for the job unless you tick all 11 of those boxes. And I'm here to tell you that is not correct. That is a super common belief, but it is not morally wrong to apply for any job, even if you are completely unqualified, as long as you are not misrepresenting yourself. I mean, don't lie on your resume, right? But, you should only spend time applying for jobs that you think, okay, I want the job and I have some chance of getting it. So you don't have to tick all the boxes, but you should tick some of the boxes, hopefully. And then feel free to apply for it. I would not point out where you do not meet, requirements 6 through 12, because the hiring manager is going to know that. They know what they want in their mind, and they are going to look at your resume and they're going to say, okay, this person's done C++, they've done embedded systems. Okay, let's call them up. Oh, they don't have motors, then that's okay. We'll figure that out. Or if they really want motor control, they'll look at your resume, they won't see motor control, and they just won't call you. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Again, no knife fights and don't lie on your resume, but the rest is fine.
Regarding like experience and all that, how do you filter out when a resume actually wants that much experience and when they're just putting it in as a filler? Like we've all seen the resume poster, like we need 5 years of experience in that programming language made last year.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You know, I use these buckets, like I said. If it says 0 to 3 years, that means okay, you can be new, you can have no experience, and that's probably okay. You know, when it says 5+ years, then you probably have to have used it for a while, or you know, if it says you need to have 5 years experience as a software engineer, you're probably not looking for a new college grad. On the other hand, you know, sometimes someone will say, like, I have definitely had it so that my job rec that I'm hiring for will say principal software engineer, which means they need to have 10 or more years of experience or whatever. If I get a really good resume of someone who's got 4 years of experience and I see, okay, there's some interesting projects in their resume, let's give them a call. Maybe we could hire them as a, you know, a staff software engineer instead of a principal software engineer, and they can do similar work. Or frequently, a manager will have, you know, a couple of jobs open at a time of varying levels of seniority. And so if you come in and your resume says you're a new college grad, but you've applied for a 5+ year thing, well, maybe the manager's going to knows they're going to be hiring a new college grad in a month or so, and they'll call you up for that. Again, it costs time and energy to apply for jobs. So I understand you don't want to just apply for everything under the sun because that kind of wastes everybody's time. But don't be too scared off by the numbers on there. Again, if you're a new college grad and it says 20 years experience in this type of algorithm design, it's probably not worth your time to do. But you know, if you're off by a few years, don't worry about it. Just give it a shot. Here's another unsolicited tip. If you are interested in a company, you know, iRobot, any company under the sun, go to LinkedIn and find out someone at that company who is doing the kind of work you'd like to do. And then figure out, you know, if you can email them through LinkedIn to say hi. You know, write a very short note and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm, you know, graduating from Purdue in May. I'm really interested in learning more about a software engineering job at your company or whatever job at your company. Could you give me 15 minutes of your time to, you know, to talk about it? Worst case, you're going to get ignored. Best case, they'll say, sure, I like talking about my job. I know we're hiring. I know that it's, you know, right now the job market is pretty hot for people looking for jobs. I'll take a random 15-minute phone call from someone who politely asked, who respected my time, and who seems interested in the company. And then, you know, maybe they'll take the phone call. I've hired somebody with that. This a random person from the internet sent me that exact message on LinkedIn. I looked him up. Okay, this guy's done embedded stuff. He worked at GE before. He says he's interested in iRobot. I'll do a half-an-hour phone call with him. We were hiring for some similar role, and we ended up hiring him. And he's been here, I don't know how many years. He's been here for a few years. He then ended up bringing in a couple other former colleagues from GE as well. So it can work out. And again, worst case, you get ignored.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it could be an easier route sometimes through alumni networks, right? People are a little bit more open-minded because they know what Purdue is. So you're making friends right now for life in many ways. Kind of hard to do that when you're doing this all online. That's why actually turning on cameras and actually seeing each other's faces could be a useful thing. But really the connections are persistent, and getting references from a friend of a friend is actually very important. There's also been times when people get hiring bonuses for bringing in people, right? So it might be good for Chris to bring in a new person financially.
Yep, it definitely is. It definitely is. That guy that I'm talking about that I helped hire, I got a nice chunk of change because we hired him as well. So everyone can win. In job markets.
I guessed correctly. It's good, right? It's the right thing to do, and it's a matter of finding the outliers because they are going to be good outliers in their job performance.
Yep. Absolutely.
I have a comment, Chris. I commend you for talking about mental status and mental issues. It's yes, it's maybe not as much of a stigma to talk about it so much. It has evolved. Certainly, in my home country in Germany, it remains somewhat of a stigma. So I can empathize with probably half of the class that may not be born in the US, that this is a topic of discussion that can be tackled, should be tackled, especially at high performance organizations or looking around at Purdue. The occurrence of mental issues is actually relatively high compared to the general populace. So it is not unlikely you encounter high performers that are also have a depression. So look out for your peers, see who you can help, or if you feel overwhelmed, seek help. This is not a topic that you need to hide. In fact, if you hide it, there's a good chance you can't get better. So there's no shame in doing so. And there is dire consequences, really, for not addressing the issue. Certainly for your own life, possibly for your friends that are around you, and also for the people that are around you if you have untackled issues yourself. So I strongly encourage you to seek out help. Purdue has a variety of entry points for that. There's hotlines, there's student areas, recaps, I think is what it's called. So I would say there's help here, and most people on campus are pretty friendly. You can just go to any faculty member and say, "Look, I need some help. You know where to point me to." There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help or seeking help for your friend if you don't know how to do it.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? So how do you negotiate salary?
Very carefully. The negotiating salary, it is expected. It is expected that you negotiate. I want you to negotiate. If my company makes you an offer, you should absolutely negotiate. You know, Google around, look around. There's some good resources out there for like how to negotiate a salary. The company wants to obviously spend less money, but the company also a good company doesn't want to underpay you, because if you're underpaid, then you're going to realize that and you're going to leave pretty quickly, and then whatever time and energy they've spent in training you is going to be wasted. But the company doesn't want to overpay for you, and you don't want to get underpaid. So you know you got to kind of meet in the middle. As a general guideline, do whatever research you can. Does Purdue publish salaries, like anonymized salaries of people going to different jobs or different companies?
There is a student resource in the Career Counseling Office, CCO.
Okay.
You can actually survey salaries. They have recent data, and it's a good look. Purdue salaries are actually, of any Purdue employee, are you can Google them, Journal and Courier and all that. Actually, any federal employee, you can Google their salary. And in that sense, I am a federal employee too, because I'm a state employee. So you can Google all of this stuff, and that kind of sets the stage. And I remember distinctively when I graduated, that stuff wasn't online. You had to go to Freehaver Hall and look at the big book where they could publish people's salaries. And when I graduated, I actually went there, spent an hour, plowed through the book, and looked up the people I respect or respected, and I looked up the people that I didn't respect. And I have that crib sheet still somewhere. And I never was going to come back to Purdue, but it set the stage of me understanding of the young faculty that looked interesting and exciting, the senior faculty that looked interesting and exciting, and not so interesting and exciting. And I used that sheet 10 years later when I was considering coming back to Purdue and compared again. Where did the people go that I respected financially and physically, and what happened to the people that I didn't respect financially and physically? And that, I mean, keeping that kind of data is certainly personally interesting, but it also helps you understand what the market is.
Yeah. Yeah, understanding what the market is, I think, the number one skill, and that's an evolving skill. Yeah, like you, when I left school, there wasn't anything online. The best data I've seen nowadays is, Glassdoor has some okay information, LinkedIn has some okay information. There's something called levels.fyi that they tend to focus on the FANGs, the big ones, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons. Then Carnegie Mellon publishes very good, very detailed stats on their computer engineering, computer science, EE grads, both based on level, bachelor's, master's, PhD, and then where they go in the country regionally, where they go in the world regionally, and then what their salaries can be. So CMU, the Carnegie Mellon, has a very nice open set of a lot of data. So, early career kind of stuff, where do first jobs go? Good data set there. I think they update it every spring or fall, or at least once a year. The other piece of information is understand that, Amazon, Google, Facebook, they're going to pay far more in salary and in stock than many other companies. And so know what you're getting into. If you're going to a small startup, they're going to probably give you stock options. They're going to probably give you a salary, but it's not going to be a Google salary or an Amazon salary. And working at a Google or an Amazon or Facebook has some benefits and some downsides, and working at a small startup has some benefits and some downsides. And then, a mid-sized company has something in the middle. So, I've worked at big, I've worked at medium, and I've worked at small, and I've enjoyed them all. I find that iRobot is kind of a medium-sized company now, and I like it. But know that it's not always apples to apples. 100K at one company is not the same as 100K at another company. Let's see, you got a question here about how to handle procrastination. I always tend to find myself working new deadlines and straining myself. Procrastination, I'm guessing we all have dealt with procrastination. I don't have a great answer for that, other than showing up and doing your work is the way to get better at something, and simply setting up your environment to make it as easy as possible for you to sit down and actually do your work. So if you can sort of reduce all the friction between you and whatever it is you want to do, I highly recommend. There's a book called Atomic Habits, which I reread every once in so often because it kind of talks about this. And basically, human beings were kind of lazy. Like I like to be lazy, right? I don't really want to, I don't want to go do my daily exercise. I don't really want to do menial tasks that I have to do from time to time. But I find that if I leave my math textbook open on my desk and leave a piece of paper next to it, and I'm turned to the exam or to the exercise page, and I say, okay, my plan is at 2 o'clock, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do half an hour worth of work, and then I'm going to go do something else. Stick with that, make it very easy to fall into it, and just sit down and do it. It's a discipline. Like, at no point in my life am I like, yay, I get to go do this task I don't want to do. Instead, it's like, all right, look, I'm an adult, I'm a professional. Part of being a professional, whether you're a student or whether you're working at a full-time job, part of being a professional student or a full-time employee is doing the thing that you're, in my case, being paid to do, or in the student, you're literally paying to do. Do the thing that your profession is supposed to do. Sit down and just do it. And that is trite, and I'm not trying to minimize the fact that you really don't want to do that thing, but that's what it boils down to. I don't know if that was helpful at all. Let's see, I just got a pop-up question here. What should I do on days when I feel too stressed out with my PhD life? So I feel you. I guarantee you, many of the people in this room have exactly the same thoughts. What should you do when you feel stressed out? This goes back to the mental health thing. And I hesitate to give any answer because, I don't know you. I don't know where you're at. I'm going to give some generic advice, and I hope it's all right.
Think about yourself. I can give you my example of what I do.
I'm sorry?
You're certainly fine to tell us what you feel, and I'll share with the group what I do. So it's a personal recipe, right?
Sure. That's great. That's a great suggestion. Thank you very much. So I get overly stressed at work sometimes, with my work and with my life and with everything going on, right? And so I talk about it with my wife. I will tell my wife, I am really stressed about this thing at work. And, she will usually sort of talk me down and say, okay, well, what's stressful about it? Tell me about it. And I'll usually vent for a while, and she's good at listening. And so, doing that, merely admitting it and just talking about it and sort of giving voice to it usually takes some of the sting out of it. I mean, the situation doesn't go away. I still have a deadline. I still have this issue, but at the very least, talking about it kind of gets you out of your own head a little bit, because it's very easy to get in your own echo chamber where this is the end of the world. And having someone else listen to that, my wife is very good at telling me it's not the end of the world. Like, let's step back and get a little perspective. So talking with your friends, talking with others about that. Sometimes I'll go and I journal on and off. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I'll go and I'll write down, like, I will write down my thoughts, especially if my wife's in bed and I'm up late or whatever. I'll just write down, I am stressed because of these things, and I'll make a bulleted list, like the good engineer I am. I'll make a bulleted list of, I'm stressed by thing X, thing Y, thing Z, and then I'll usually ask myself, okay, what's the worst thing that happens if thing X comes true, or if thing Y misses the deadline, or if thing Z happens? And usually by looking at what the worst case is, it's usually not actually that bad. And the worst case is usually, like, my imagined worst case. Once I finally write it down, it takes some of the sting out of it, takes some of the fear out of it. Those are kind of some of the things I do. Another things I do is I try to go run, I try to exercise, because doing any sort of physical activity, especially something where you get your heart rate up, releases dopamine, releases all kinds of brain chemicals that are proven to scientifically actually help us reduce stress and help reduce cortisol levels, which is built up during stress. So there's a bunch of brain science that says if you exercise and eat well, you will actually feel less stress. Again, not to trivialize the stress, but you can keep physically healthy that way. That can help your mental health as well. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I have similar recipes. Personally, just if I can, I go and play soccer, and within a minute or two, I'm so intensely in the game, I can't really even think about it, what the issues are. Some things in life are so dramatic or traumatic that didn't help, but in my life, that has been only like in very few parts of my life where that was not helpful. Speaking with others about it, either wife, husband, partner, sometimes outside people that you still trust, right? You have to be careful to a certain degree how much private information you let out. So there needs to be a trust piece. But sometimes trusted people that are far enough away from the overall situation have a completely different perspective. They take away the vestedness, right? Like, Chris, your wife might have actually an emotional connection, to a sense that if you get really hurt, she might feel sensitive about it, right? And that may not be good for her or good for you, right? So having an external mentor to discuss these issues, career issues, and a mentor is not your boss, it's actually maybe a person in the organization, but in a parallel organization, not in your line of reporting, for example. So talking with people about the appropriate topics is, I think, very, very important, and it gives perspective, and it sets the level ground, right? So that would be my suggestion.
Great.
I mean, it's conflict management, right? It's a life skill that you learn, and I think every person continues to learn. It's not like a thing that you master. If you really mastered it, you probably have a really pretty dull life.
That's true. That's true. That is very. I've been working for 20 years, and I've been married for 18 years, and it's I've got a young son, and so it's definitely new things come up to be stressful, and it's continually sort of introspecting, learning, dealing, getting stressed, figuring out how to deal with it, figuring out ways to cope, figuring out ways to handle it.
Yeah, and there are things that might make you stressed out today that would have never touched you 20 years ago, or there's things that 20 years ago made you pull your hair out, and today you're like, I wasn't sure what I was worried about, right? So
Absolutely.
so it's a life skill that continues to be learned. So that's my suggestion.
Absolutely. Yep.
And having a balance, play music, play soccer, sports, go fishing, whatever that is, have something else beyond your keyboard, right? Unless your keyboard is a Yamaha keyboard or something.
Musical instruments, fair game. Thank you for the thank you.
We're all done.
You're quite
Right.
welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for presenting. Thanks for your honest perspective. This is great.
Thank you. Hope it was helpful.
Feedback that's anonymized, so I'll do that right away as well. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.